Hello everybody, my name is Kat and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things horror. I know this week that The Strangers Chapter 3 is coming out to theaters and I'm just not going to see that. I made a promise at the start of this year that I was going to be more kind to myself. And for me, that means avoiding films that I know are just going to piss me off. And instead, we're going to talk Iron Lung. Iron Lung is, of course, the film written, directing, and starring YouTube icon Markiplier. It premiered last weekend at the box office in what I believe was a limited release. And for a while there were questions around whether or not it was actually going to beat out Sam Raimi's Send Help at the box office, which is kind of a big deal because Iron Lung is a film that is self-produced. It is a film that is self-distributed. It ended up at number 2, which is very impressive. And there has since been a lot of commentary around the film, and some people really liking it, and some people absolutely hating it. I went into it with pretty much zero expectations. I had no idea what the actual story was. I knew it was based off of an indie game of the same name. I never watched Markiplier play the game. I have enjoyed Markiplier's content in the past. There was a time, I want to say around like 2014-ish to 2016 when I was watching his YouTube videos religiously. Okay, but did I enjoy Iron Lung? Overall, I will say yes. I actually did enjoy it. I actually enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to. I totally agree with the number one criticism of this film in that it is way too long. And I don't know if it's just because I went in with low expectations, because I was kind of going into it like, okay, this is another YouTuber horror film. And the last YouTuber horror film that I watched was Shelby Oaks. Went into Iron Lung being like, is this going to be another Shelby Oaks? I really hope not. And while it was definitely taxing, I think it does do a good job of bringing you into the psychology of the character and making you feel that icky, claustrophobic, existential dread feeling that the protagonist has throughout the film. It's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. But I do think there are plenty of positives here that deserve praise. But let's get into what worked and what didn't work. As already mentioned, the biggest critique that I have for this film is the pacing, which I kind of keep going back and forth on because on the one hand, yes, it is a super long movie at over 2 hours, and it is made up of these long meandering scenes where we're seeing Mark's character fiddling around with the technology in the submarine. There's long montages where he is trying to figure out the coordinates of where he's at underwater and trying to get to certain places. There are long sequences where it's just him inside the submarine and you can hear someone coming over the speaker and he's having just these conversations with whoever is on the other end of the speaker. But it's these very long, drawn-out moments that oftentimes will give you information that you already learned in another part of the film. For me, in the past, when you have films like this that show very monotonous action again and again, what helps to keep it interesting is when you're always learning something new, either about the character or about the world that they are living in. An example of this that comes to mind right away is something like The Long Walk. Yes, it is a completely different premise than Iron Lung, although similar in the sense that they're both stories that are supposed to take place in a time period after some sort of societal collapse. And with The Long Walk, you have the monotonous action of just watching these characters walking. Nothing else is happening. But every scene is telling you something new about the characters or the worlds that the characters are living in. And that's what keeps it fairly interesting for the most part. Whereas I feel like with Iron Lung, sometimes we get that, sometimes we don't. It does want to conceal information, and I understand that that is supposed to be part of this Lovecraftian vibe that the story has. I feel like it would have been nice if we learned a little bit more about the character. I understand his arc for the most part, but it would have been nice to maybe get a little bit more information. And the thing is, the film might actually be giving us more information than what I picked up on, because one of my other big critiques with this movie is that there were times where either the lighting just got super dark and you couldn't really see anything. There was one scene where we see Mark's character going underneath the submarine to find something and it was completely dark. They had established that the lighting in the submarine had gone out, but still, just because in story world the lighting goes out, as far as the filmmaking goes, there should still be some kind of source of light so we as the audience can see what's happening. I remember that moment clearly because I couldn't see anything and I was like, what is happening? What is he doing? I don't know. There were issues like that, and then I feel like there were also issues with the sound, and I don't know if this was just the theater that I was in, if it was just the speakers, but there were times where the characters were talking and I could not for the life of me understand what they were saying. Especially those scenes where you're having people talking over that speaker that is in the submarine. Is it a submarine? I keep calling it that. You know what I mean. Which again kind of added to this very disorienting feeling that I think the film does want you to have. But again, we have to differentiate when is something intentional and when something might just be like you needed to do another pass over the sound mix. There were times watching the film where I felt my mind starting to drift. There's like one point at the hour and 30-minute mark where you learn that Mark's character has to do a certain action within a 30-minute time frame. And I was like, okay, is this going to play out in real time? Or are we going to actually see this getting played out in the 30 minutes? And sometimes that can be really cool in a film or a TV show when they're actually doing something in real time. And I was kind of thinking about it afterwards, and I was like, if the film had just trimmed down maybe a little bit and then played with that idea of showing us the actual 30 minutes as it plays out, I think it could have actually done a lot to up the suspense of that moment. And when you're heightening suspense, I also feel like you are just inherently enhancing that sense of claustrophobia as well. And I think claustrophobic is one of the key emotions that this film wants you to have. So I'm curious what a cut of this film would look and feel like if it had gotten rid of some of the bloat. And I don't think you always need to have a very long length in a film in order to create that feeling of time passing, but nothing feels like it's happening and you're kind of going mad because of it. I don't know why. The one film that keeps coming to my mind when I'm thinking about this is a film called Buried. I think from sometime in the mid-early 2000s, about a soldier who gets buried alive. Different premise, but kind of similar in that just like claustrophobic existential dread feel. I hate that movie. Not because it's bad, but because I just remember feeling like the walls were closing in on me. That's an example of a film in which you have a character that is literally stuck in one location, cannot move at all. And that's only an hour and 30-minute type film, but it feels like it lasts forever just because of that urgency and that claustrophobia. So all of that to say, I'm curious what a different cut of this movie would look like and feel like, and if a different cut might actually enhance the overall feeling that I think Mark was going for here. And of course, the argument can be made that because of its length and because it does feel like an endurance test that is putting you into the mind of the character. It kind of reminds me of something like a Skinamarink, which also very much felt like an endurance test. I feel like Skinamarink had a much more experimental vibe that it was going for, rather than so much Iron Lung, which did definitely have experimental elements to it. And again, I'm torn because I understand the criticism of it being too long, and I definitely felt that as well. But I did kind of enjoy the weird vibes and feelings that the film gives. It is kind of similar to Skinamarink, where it is just dropping you as the audience into the situation without much information and saying, okay, good luck. So I kind of liked it. Like when I left the theater, I felt tired and sad. And again, it's not often that you see a film like this within this kind of theatrical experience. I did a double feature of this film and Send Help. I saw Send Help first, which in retrospective, I should have done it the other way around. But to go from something like Send Help, which is over the top and B-movie and fun and just wants you to have a good time, to something that is very heavy and very existential, I just left the theater like, oof. That was the biggest surprise for me. And so I think that's why overall I'm liking the film, even though I do recognize a lot of its flaws in terms of the technical aspects of the film as well as the story. I really enjoyed the aesthetics of this movie. I loved the look of the ship. I loved that weird X-ray machine that they're using to take photos underwater. water. And I love that it is through these creepy X-ray images that you're seeing this Lovecraftian creature. And I think as far as Lovecraft stories or Eldritch terror stories, I actually think this one pulled it off really well. The real horror for Lovecraft is this existential dread, is this thought that there are things that exist in this world that us humans cannot understand. There are things that go beyond our consciousness. I think some of the best Lovecraft adaptations are ones that do just focus on the feeling. And I think Iron Lung does a really great job of that. You know that there is some kind of otherworldly creature out there, and whatever is left of humanity is desperately trying to find some kind of understanding of what happened and how to stop it. I think all of those elements together make this a really strong Lovecraftian story. And this is going to get into spoilers for the ending, so if you don't want to get spoiled, skip ahead. I'll leave a timestamp down below here. What I also liked about the narrative is that at a certain point it becomes very clear that our protagonist is not going to make it through this journey, and you're just seeing that madness happening again in real time of him trying to fight back and trying to survive, and then getting to the point of realizing that he's not going to make it, and then eventually resigning himself to his fate, but also having the understanding that while he might not survive, he can still do one last action that can hopefully lead to the betterment of the other survivors. I do like this theme that the film had around, I guess, sacrificing oneself for the greater good. And given everything that is happening in the world right now, and especially as someone that is living in America, I feel like this theme of fighting for the greater good is very prevalent right now. I know it was filmed a couple of years ago, so I'm not saying that that is what the intention of the film was, but it is interesting to see a film like this with these particular themes at this particular time. Admittedly, when the film started, it took me, I would say, probably like 30 minutes to really get into the character and not just see Markiplier on screen. When we see him and he starts talking, my brain just automatically went to all those Five Nights at Freddy's videos of him just like shouting.
I'll play through. Ah, fuck! What the fuck? Oh!
It took me a while to detach myself from the Markiplier persona and realize like this is a separate character. Once I was able to get over that, I do feel like Mark is a good actor. I'm not saying he's the best actor in the world. I'm really curious to see what a film by him would look like if he was working with other actors. But yeah, I don't know. There was something about it that I just kind of dug. I'm still thinking about it days after I saw it. And yeah, it just kind of left me with this very heavy feeling leaving the theater, which again, I was not expecting at all. It is a film that I would be interested in going back to, even though it is very long. I look forward to watching it with either hopefully a better sound mix or at least with captions on so I can understand what the characters were saying. You know, there were times when I was watching the film where I had the thought of maybe this would be a more enjoyable experience if I was actually playing the game, right? I'm thinking of scenes where he's like trying to figure out all of the coordinates and we're seeing him with the maps. That was something where I was like, this would probably be more engaging if I was actually playing the game. But I think overall, as far as adaptations go, I think this is one of the better ones. Did you see Iron Lung? Did you hate it? Did you love it? Are you somewhere in between? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.